88 co-sponsors and simply corrects a drafting error in the Tax Code and Jobs Act, which allow improvements made to inside of commercial buildings to qualify for a 15-year depreciation. I've actually talked to a lot of members on your side, and I know there's a lot of support, and this may not be the appropriate time, but if nothing else, at least raise the idea. This Congress, I think, did a really good job in wrapping up a number of bipartisan common sense tax measures that Republicans and Democrats have been working on for a long time. The medical device tax, the appropriations vehicles. You know, it's unfortunate this was left out. I actually think this is something we ought to figure out a way sometime to work on. And this would, I actually think this would help you pass what I know is a difficult bill in some ways, because it does, you know, have an advantage that hits every place in the country based simply on commercial activity. So I offer it to you, and
no, I appreciate it, and I think I may even be a co-sponsor of the Panetta bill.
Well, my staff pointed that could be possible.
Yeah, so but he has 288 co-sponsors. If you get another two, you know, he can obviously be eligible for the consensus calendar. And
you know, we've gone through the Wilson thing, so we're not 100% sure that everything that hits 290 gets to the consensus.
Well, if an individual wants to do it, but you know, but just like the Wilson widows tax, and I asked you to trust me, and
it took a long time.
I assured Mr. Woodall time and time again that I had the best way to get this enacted.
To be fair, Mr. Chairman, it took 2 months longer than the entire impeachment investigation to get it done. It was a long.
Oh, we're close to Christmas. Let's not go there.
But I'll also point out that you know it took our majority to get it done. But anyway, I just don't think this is the vehicle to do it. But I will work with the gentleman to make sure that.
I appreciate that.
All right. I heard the. Amendment from the gentleman from Oklahoma. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No.
We would like a vote on it.
And the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hastings. Mrs. Torres. No. Mrs. Torres, no. Mr. Perlmutter. Mr. Perlmutter, no. Mr. Raskin. Ms. Scanlon. Ms. Scanlon, no. Mr. Morelli. Mr. Morelli, no. Ms. Shalala. Ms. Shalala, no. Mr. DeSaulnier. Mr. DeSaulnier, no. Mr. Cole.
Aye.
Mr. Cole, aye. Mr. Woodall.
Aye.
Mr. Woodall, aye. Mr. Burgess. Mrs. Lesko. Aye. Mrs. Lesko, aye. Mr. Chairman.
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
Clerk report the total.
3 yeas, 7 nays.
Amendment is not agreed to. Further amendments.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Woodall.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to the rule, and I move the committee provide the consideration for Rice number 9 in the rule. The amendment eliminates the salt tax deduction cap on the bottom 90% of taxpayers and denies the salt deduction for the top 10% of taxpayers. As you recall, we were talking about how to get everyone on one page. This achieves the goal that our Democratic leadership laid out for providing the salt deduction to firefighters, school teachers, and all of those working men and women in so many of these jurisdictions that are high-cost jurisdictions, and we pay for it at the expense of folks like the multimillionaires in my district who don't need it at all, and it would be taken away from the wealthy, so that jurisdictions that may need the maximum salt deduction could utilize it. We can do this in a bipartisan way, and this was one of the creative ideas that we heard on hearing day of how to get that done.
All right, we heard the amendment from the gentleman from Georgia. Any debate or comments or anything?
Second great idea, Mr. Chairman.
Nobody else? Yeah, I have a rebuttal, but it's too long and I'm too tired. I'm just gonna submit it for the record. Okay, the vote is now on the Woodall amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Opinion chair, the noes have it. You want a roll call? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hastings. Mrs. Torres. No. Mrs. Torres, no. Mr. Perlmutter. No. Mr. Perlmutter, no. Mr. Raskin. Ms. Scanlon. Ms. Scanlon, no. Mr. Morelli. Mr. Morelli, no. Ms. Shalala. Ms. Shalala, no. Mr. DeSaulnier. No. Mr. DeSaulnier, no. Mr. Cole. Aye. Mr. Cole, aye. Mr. Woodall. Aye. Mr. Woodall, aye. Mr. Burgess. Aye. Mr. Burgess, aye. Mrs. Lesko. Aye. Mrs. Lesko? Aye. Mr. Chairman?
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
Clerk, report the total.
4 yeas, 7 nays.
Amendment is not agreed to. Further amendments? Hearing none, the vote is now on the motion of the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Torres. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Clerk will call, a roll call has been requested. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hastings? Mrs. Torres? Aye. Mrs. Torres? Aye. Mr. Perlmutter? Aye. Mr. Perlmutter? Aye. Mr. Raskin? Ms. Scanlon? Ms. Scanlon? Aye. Mr. Morelli? Mr. Morelli? Aye. Ms. Shalala? Yes. Ms. Shalala? Aye. Mr. DeSaulnier? Aye. Mr. DeSaulnier? Aye. Mr. Cole?
In your heart, you know.
Mr. Cole? No. Mr. Woodall? Mr. Woodall? No. Mr. Burgess? Mr. Burgess? No. Mrs. Lesko? Mrs. Lesko? No. Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman? Aye.
Clerk, report the total.
7 yeas, 4 nays.
The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Accordingly, the gentlelady from California, Ms. Torres, will manage it for the majority. And so I think this is it for the year. I think we're done, right? For barring some catastrophe. I think, again, I want to just say that I really appreciate everybody coming back, and I appreciate the way people conducted themselves yesterday in this committee, and I think we're getting bipartisan positive reviews on that, which makes me really proud of this committee and everybody who serves on it. And I wish everybody a happy holidays, happy New Year. I hope you don't think about anything that we're, yeah, Mr. Morelli.
I just want to thank you and Mr. Cole. I really was incredibly proud to be a member of this committee yesterday, and I think, despite our differences, served to demonstrate all the good things in this institution, in this country, and I'm incredibly proud to serve with all of you, and I just wanted to thank you both for your leadership during a difficult period. So thank you so much.
All right. Well, I know, I know, yeah, I saw that. Without objection, the committee is adjourned. Thank you. Donna, Shalala, thank you for the cookies.